Right, so I wanted to make a video about something that I've talked a little bit about, I believe, but it's the whole We Charity scandal with Justin Trudeau and post-millennial rights. How can Trudeau government, or how can the Trudeau government keep getting away with this blatant cronyism? And pundit class on Twitter responds by saying, shut down Parliament, bribe the press and make them dependent, defund the Auditor General, keep the opposition stitched up with gender and race issues and profit. And this is the problem that people say, oh, they're giving money to charity, but what they don't realize is, for starters, most of these rich people, in fact, I would say the majority of them, they make a lot of money off their charities. And how do they do that? Well, it's a simple reason that they don't. When you run a charity, there's nothing saying that you can't keep half the money for administrative purposes and, launder that to and launder it back to yourself. I mean, you look at the Clinton Foundation again. The Clintons have a net worth in the hundreds of millions of dollars now, I believe. And according to Hillary, they were broke when they left the White House. So how do they get so much money? Well, very simple. Um, they seven, figure, we're talking, I mean, maybe not say, they give, 100,000 to upwards of probably $1 million speeches, which again, money gets donated to the Clinton Foundation. A lot of that ends up back in their hands. Again, it's the same thing with Bill Gates. Again, people think he's always the nicest guy ever because he's giving away money to charity. But what they don't tell you is the fact that I made a video about this, and that he says, "Yeah, I've given away 10 billion dollars of my money for vaccine research," but he thinks he's going to make 200 billion off that. So again, they're just such manipulative people. It's not even funny. And this is the thing, again, one of the many reasons why the left has no credibility whatsoever is that they constantly complain about crony capitalism and all this corruption that goes on in society, but yet they're completely ignoring it when it goes on in other way, like when Justin Trudeau does it, when the Clintons do it, when Bill Gates does it. And again, these are just people I'm thinking about off the top of my head. I mean, I don't have anything. I mean, specifically, yes, I do hate, have a very um, I really do dislike Justin Trudeau, really dislike the Clintons. I mean, for the reason that they've gotten, not as much Justin Trudeau, but the Clintons especially have gotten a ton of people killed. And I'm just not talking about all the people that have mysteriously committed suicide. I'm talking about the fact that, Hillary headed up the destruction or the overthrowing of Gaddafi, which led to literal slavery going on in Libya now. Um, One of the many reasons is stuff like that. But the main point with this being is that this is basically how the left operates too, is that they've shut down Parliament for no apparent reason, like no apparent reason whatsoever. I mean, the whole virus situation is clearly just an excuse, and that they're ramming through all these corrupt. I mean, they're ramming through, they trying to ram through the gun control, this garbage, all that stuff, and the fact that this is just all corruption. Like, I don't understand it, and this is one of the many reasons why we can't. This is why the political divide nowadays is so bad, that the left refuses to acknowledge they're wrong on anything, refuses to acknowledge corruption, and they refuse to acknowledge their double standard too, because they rail against corporate corruption when like Jason Kenney, I mean, you read through his Twitter feed, that's all they complain about. Like, that's all they complain about. Um, and then like they completely ignore the 100,000 plus jobs that were lost under the NDP, but the jobs lost under Kenny are the worst thing in the world, even though it's less jobs, at least from what I've seen. Um, so again, that's the other thing too, is that they refuse to admit the blatant hypocrisy, and they refuse. And here's the thing too, is that they know that there's a very soft spot. I mean, the first thing that they do is they infiltrate the public schools and the universities, and brainwash people into socialism. And then the other thing they do is that they infiltrate the mainstream media. They pay them off, which again brainwashes people into socialism and all this leftist garbage. And they turn around and, okay, well, they know that the only way that the right, that I mean, not the only way, but um, that if they do that, it's going to keep the right constantly on the defensive, right? Because they've brainwashed most of the population into thinking that if you're to the right of a socialist, then you're the worst thing in the world. And that's why the right, one of the many reasons why the right is having such trouble winning elections these days is that they're constantly on the defensive for stuff that's complete and utter BS. I mean, talking about racism nowadays is it's so stupid. It's not even funny for the simple reason that again, people can't come up with a legitimate example of systemic racism. All the ones they come up with are either long in the past or BS or largely not true or happen on a very small scale. I mean, it's the whole like 10 unarmed black men are killed by police every year in the States. Is that a terrible thing that those people were killed? Yeah, but it's 10 people. Like more black men die of constipation. More black men die of falling down stairs. Like the crazy things that more black people die of than um, unarmed people shot by police. It's not even funny. So again, they get you focused on these issues that are complete, not that they're non-issues, but they're things that should be way down on the list of things we should be talking about. And while they have people distracted, they ram through these stupid things and enrich themselves. Like again, you look at all of these politicians. Again, this is the one thing. Again, one of the many reasons why the left has no credibility is that um, they're constantly skeptical of people's wealth when they make it in the private sector. Whether or not they unjustly make it or not doesn't matter. But yet when someone becomes has a net worth in the tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, and they never made more than a $250,000 salary. Again, how do those numbers add up? Like you either had literally the best investments in history, or there's some shady stuff going on, and usually there's shady stuff going on. Um, and that's the problem too, is that why aren't these leftists worried about politicians that unjustly enrich themselves um, through being a politician? Well, the reality is that they don't care. The reality is that the goal is to destroy capitalism, is to destroy the free market. So anybody that they can, and this is the thing too, is that a lot of the people that they tie to the free market, again, whenever you debate the left on capitalism, they'll always strawman capitalism and debunk it. Whenever you point to the atrocities of communism, they'll strawman capitalism, like the British Empire or any of this garbage. I mean, for the simple reality that it's not capitalism if there's force involved, and that's what they always point to, is that the British imposed capitalism on country X. Well, that's not capitalism by definition because it can't be imposed. Now they'll say the same thing when it comes to communism, but the reality is that communism needs to be imposed on people. So again, there's a very clear difference there, in that the it wasn't real capitalism. And here's the other thing too, is that the one thing that they'll argue too is that they'll argue on one hand, um, capitalism is, there's the capitalism has committed all these atrocities throughout history, but yet on the other hand, um, whenever you advocate for a true free market, they'll tell you, well, give me an example of the free market ever working in the past. Like again, these are the same people that do that, when nobody does that on the other side. And like no one says, oh, communism has killed hundreds of millions of people throughout history, but yet on the other hand be like, there's no examples of communist countries. Like that would be the equivalent of doing that. And the left would rake you over the coals if you did that. No, the argument on the right is that there's been plenty of communism. The argument is, oh, communism's failed every time it's been tried. So there's a very clear difference there. But getting back to the main point, I know I'm kind of jumping around here. It's just a blatant hypocrisy. I mean, there's no way, really real way around that. It's just blatant hypocrisy, blatant corruption too. In that, like I say, a lot of these rich people continue to enrich themselves through charity. I mean, you look at the who that one singer, Bono, like 10% of the money that goes through his charity actually goes towards charitable work. I mean, and that's the other thing too, is that there's nothing saying that charities have to give X number amount to actually for charitable purposes. There's nothing I mean, at least I don't think there's anything saying that. For the simple reason, I mean, anybody with half a brain would just not donate to a charity like that. But the problem is that most people don't care. They hear charity and they like the guy. I mean, with Justin Trudeau and the whole we thing. Oh, it's Justin Trudeau, or his wife, I think, was actually the one who's more involved. or his ex-wife, depending on who you talk to. Um, and oh, I like them, I'm going to give money to them. Or the Clintons, oh, I like them, I'm going to give money to the Clinton Foundation. This is the other thing too, is that um, you have the Clinton Foundation. When Hillary Clinton was in the Obama administration, I believe, they sold a lot of the state's uranium to Russia for like $100 million. So again, of course, some of that money is going to end up back in their pockets, even if it's 10%. Let's say that 10% goes towards administrative purposes, 10 goes to, or sorry, 80 goes to charitable purposes. That's still $10 million, profit, or cash that goes to them. So of course these people are unjustly enriching themselves through charities. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. So if you like the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Check out my PayPal and email, and link in the description. Appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And last few things, check me out on Parlay, check me out on Twitter, check me out on BitChute. Very important that you follow people that are out there speaking the truth, so make sure you follow me on those platforms if you haven't already.